Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show, coming at you live every Wednesday, 7 p.m. From Majority Towers here in Hamilton, actually, and Central Belt, as it were. Anyway, this is Scotland's number one show for anti-nationalist perspectives and discussion. So I'm here tonight. I'm the host, Mark Devlin, and I'm here tonight with my co-host, Mark Zegfeld, and Mary Devlin, who has recovered. Have you recovered, Mary?
I have indeed. I'm feeling fighting fit.
Right.
It's nice to be back.
That's very good.
And I just wanted to thank everyone for all the well wishes last week. Thank you so much.
Right, well, that's very nice. You got a lot of very nice
I did,
messages there. Now, Mark, what have you got for us tonight?
Well, tonight I'm going to talk about the SNP conference. And yes, I was sad enough to watch it.
I don't know how you have the stamina for that type of thing.
A glutton for punishment, I think.
Mary, what are you going to be talking about?
Well, tonight I'm going to be talking about the latest police investigation into the Scottish Government called Operation Broadcroft.
Oh, okay.
Which I think should have been called Salmond Vengeance.
The Revenge of?
The Revenge of Alex Salmond.
Yes, that's something like that. Okay,
Salmond Revenge.
We'll be continuing our discussion from last week about the cuts. SNP cuts or Scottish Government cuts, whatever way you want to do that. So we'll be back with all that and much more in just a few moments.
And of course, we have Zoomer of the week.
Yes, that's right. So well done, Mary. Okay.
Got it in there.
Well, yes, okay, let's do it.
Can't forget.
Right, welcome back to the Majority Show, Scotland's number one politics chat from an anti-nationalist perspective. Hello to everyone who is coming in, so many regulars, and hopefully some new faces as well. I'm Mark Devlin, and the Majority's aim is a thriving Scotland without the toxic nationalism that has been strangling Scotland's potential. Here tonight with Mary and Mark Zegfeld. And as always, a huge thanks to our friends at UK Union Voice and United Against Separation Facebook pages, where many of you are watching from tonight.
And remember, sharing is caring. The number one thing you can do is to like the show on YouTube. Even if you don't subscribe, drop a like. And if you can't subscribe, please do so. Increase our reach at the click of a button.
Yes.
And as usual, I'll be managing the relentless flow of comments. So please keep them short and snappy, and I'll try to put up as many on screen as I can.
Right. Very good. All right. So let's get straight into it then. All right. It's Oor Austerity. This is the latest thing we have here. We will be talking about the SNP conference, but first we'll be following on from last week's discussion a little bit of the cuts because there's been more information about that. On Monday, Shona Robertson, it's not Robinson, Robinson's Mary keeps telling me, the finance minister, let's just say finance minister, announced that there would be 500 million in cuts. Big list that Mary wrote in here for me. This includes the previously announced reintroduction of peak time rail fares, cuts to NHS training, mental health, and social care, dropping free buses for asylum seekers as well. I'm sure that didn't cost much, but perhaps many people think you shouldn't be getting that in the first place. Allowing councils to divert money from flood schemes and nature projects, cutting green travel projects, banning non-essential recruitment, and she's also going to draw down some unspent income from offshore wind farm licenses. But these are really, I think, when you look at those, you think these are kind of one-time cuts, kind of at the edges. And are they really really big enough? We'll come to that in a minute. But who's to blame for these cuts, Mark? They say it's Westminster. Who do you think it is?
Well, it's the Scottish Government. They deal with the funds. They've had record funds over the last few years. I think last budget was the record amount. So they're the ones that are responsible for Scotland. They're the ones that are responsible for the cuts. It's SNP austerity. They're the ones that have made the decisions to freeze council tax, to build two ferries that still are not in service, the Gupta deal. We've got a lot of mismanagement, a lot of waste of money. So the cuts are down to them and them only.
Now, I'm going to be talking about a lot of that in my Zoomer, actually. So things that have been wasting money on and different scandals. So I absolutely agree with Mark that if you hadn't wasted so much money and been so stupid with the money, then there should be plenty left.
Yes, there should be indeed. They are trying to say, what we've got here, claiming that Labour, SNP are claiming that Labour implementing Tory austerity. Swinney said the Prime Minister's speech on Tuesday has made clear that Scotland is facing years of austerity under Labour, which will have a profound consequences on public services and living standards. But while that makes a reasonable soundbite, it ignores quite a few factors, not least of which is that the Labour government is not implementing austerity at all. Let's have a look at Swinney getting cornered on this.
But the way out of this is to end austerity. And I'm really surprised that Keir Starmer is offering us a continuation of austerity where the Conservatives left off.
Can we call it austerity though? I mean, public spending is increasing.
Keir Starmer is talking about the language of spending cuts. Look what he's having to do about winter fuel heating.
But it's in order to fund more funding for the public sector.
Well, what it's doing, what the measures that have been taken forward are reducing investment in particular schemes, such as winter heating, a measure that we would want to apply in Scotland, but we can't.
I mean, that's what happens when you sit around a table and go, you know what, I've got a really good idea. We'll blame this on Labour austerity. And then everyone goes, that's so brilliant, John. This is the best thing we've ever heard. It's amazing. And nobody in the room says, what happens if someone actually asks a question, what does austerity mean? It's absolutely, you see how he's so on the back foot there, because they think they're so clever with this austerity line. But how much do you think the public is buying it, Mark?
I don't. I think some of their supporters, their core supporters, I don't think they buy it, but they talk about it. They want to get it out there. They know it's a tactic to try and gain support for independence again, which is dropped. So, but I don't think anybody's really buying it. He's blamed Westminster. He's blamed Ukraine, the war in Ukraine. He's blamed cost of living. He's blamed Brexit. He's blamed everything but himself. Everything but their own government. And while they keep doing that, and if they carry on doing that, then what is the point of Holyrood if it's not accountable? This is the reason we're in this mess, because they're not being held accountable. You might as well shut the place, send everything back to Westminster and say, right, then it's your decisions. If there's austerity, then it is Westminster. That you can blame them then. But if you've got a Holyrood and you've got a so-called government and you've got a budget that they deal with, if they're not held accountable, they're just going to carry on doing what they're doing and blaming Westminster. Shut the place down, send it back to Westminster, and then we can have...
Certainly sounds reasonable, and we, of course, would save almost £1 billion a year in doing so. £10 billion over the next 10 years will be spent on the Scottish government, just running the Scottish government, not the actual overall budget, huge, which is in the more billions, 100 odd billion or whatever it is. But basically,
and I don't know how they can claim austerity when they've just been given £6 billion more than last year.
Well, they can't claim austerity. That's the thing. I think people are wise to this now. I also think it sounds a little bit old-fashioned. I mean, I think when the Tories got in, many years ago, and they said, "All right, we're going to have to do austerity," people were like, "Okay, right. Well, we spent too much before," and then the austerity years went on for a while, but now it's like, I don't feel that Labour's thing really is austerity. It seems to me to be more like, we've only got. They're basically saying we've got a only limited budget and we have to make choices. Now, some of those choices are ones you might not like, but these are the choices we have to make under limited resources. That has been an ongoing theme for Labour since before the election, and one of it was certainly a way for them to reach out to voters, centrist voters, who would be worried about Labour overspending. Now, some people might say that's still the case with the train workers and so on, train drivers and so on. But I mean, do you think that? I mean, Mark, although Labour said they were going to be prudent, just taking a wee bit of a side here, do you think that they are really, really able to be prudent in government?
The record, Labour's record, is quite shocking when it comes to the economy and spending money. So I've yet to see that, but we've gone through some really, really difficult times. The whole world's gone through some difficult times. You know, if you have to tighten your belt, then you have to tighten your belt. Why is it that Scotland, all of a sudden, they would be immune to this if they were independent? I don't get this argument of, well, independence would sort that out. It wouldn't. We would be in a bigger mess than we are now. We would be seeing austerity like no other, like we've never seen before if we were independent. So this idea that we have to be independent to get away from this, and Scotland somehow immune to all that's going on in the world, yes. I don't get that. I don't get that argument, and it doesn't wash with me, and I don't think it washes with.
No, I don't think it washes.
People.
It washes with anyone. Well, I mean, the issue for, I think many of the people, and we discussed this a little bit last week from that comment that just came up there, is that the objective in this previous election was to get rid of the SNP, and it still is in the next one, in the Holyrood elections as well. And whether that means that you have to take the pain of a Labour government for 4 years or perhaps even longer, then that's what it is. Because if you don't do that, then nationalism will continue to thrive, and it will end up with a breakup of the UK. So this is even though Labour has had a rocky start. We didn't vote for them people didn't tactically vote for them for their policies. Now, in saying that, as I've always said, if you did vote for Labour tactically, you are part of the party, and as well, so you can contact your MP and say, I don't agree with this, or whatever it is. So it's not lending a vote. You actually voted, right? So that's the thing. So anyway, we'll see. I kind of think that I'm kind of surprised that Keir Starmer has been taking a kind of backseat in these past few weeks. We haven't really seen him. The ministers have been seem to be let loose on a variety of topics, and seems perhaps he's just testing the waters with them, but it's not going very well, I don't think, and maybe perhaps we will get a reshuffle fairly soon. Anyway, as Mark said, and it's SNP's spending choices that have gotten themselves into this mess. The Scottish Fiscal Commission, which is Scotland's version of the UK Office for Budget. I can't even say that. UK's Office for. I can't say it. UK's Office for Budget Responsibility, that's a bit of a mouthful, said that much of the emergency cuts, of course, were caused by the SNP's own choices. For example, Hamza Yousaf's decision to freeze council tax. Now, that cost almost double the amount that was raised from increases in tax rates on higher earners, right? So his going to conference this time last year, he just decided to do that. And basically that decision basically took away all the benefit, as it were, of those tax rises. So people were taxed for nothing, right? Yep. If he just shut his mouth and not promise the council tax thing, then people wouldn't need to have been taxed any higher. And
now they're talking about really raising the council tax by huge amounts.
Well, of course, because you can't keep it. Yeah, with these things, you have to keep them going up and up.
It's an artificial suppression.
Yeah. Right? Yes.
They've already cut the councils to the bone because of the council tax freeze. That's been going on for years now. You can't. They were told you cannot keep doing this because we're going to end up in trouble. And that's exactly where they've got themselves. They've cut the councils to the absolute bone, so they can't. There's not much else they can cut when it comes to councils. So, and they were told about the pay increases on the public sector pay increases. Humza was told you're making a rod for your own back if you give in to the unions with the pay increases with the teachers, with the train drivers, they're all going to start coming. They'll see that you're weak and they'll start asking for more and more. And they have done. And what was it? I think £800 million it's cost. It's absolute shocking. And now we're getting more coming saying that, well, we'll go. The refuge people have said, we're going to go on strike if you don't give us X amount now as well. So
it's like being back in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm old enough to remember this, but back in the
Well, we'll be
70s,
sitting
that's what
around-
happened.
we'll
The
be
trade
s-
unions were running the UK
Yeah, we'll be sitting around
with our candles.
With the candles, exactly. Which was fun when we were just kids.
Yeah, when you're very young.
But perhaps not so much fun if you were trying to pay government debts off. Senior Scottish Government source said every public body under their oversight was written to in recent weeks, with SNP chiefs demanding line-by-line details of where taxpayers' cash is being spent. It doesn't take a genius to work that out. But the question I have is that why wasn't this always the case?
They should be doing that every day.
That's right, exactly, Mary. That's the exact thing. Why was it the case that they say there's a huge amount of money to be saved in how these bodies are spending money?
Then
We
you
haven't
should have
looked under
saved
the
it.
bonnet properly in years, so it's time to act. You're like, what? Isn't there what an admission that
Yeah.
is? What they should
have been looking under the bonnet.
That's the job of government. No, what they've been what's actually happened though is they've been obsessed with these social issues. Right, so they've been saying, all right, we're going to focus on transgender issues, or we're going to focus on green stuff and all this. And of course, the green stuff does cost money, and all this other stuff that generates headlines for them. And they've been instead, but their main job is to allocate spending, and they haven't been doing that. And I think you're right, Mark. I mean, basically, if they can't do the basics, then why are they there?
I think the heads of these the heads of the government have been allowed to run their departments as they want, as they wish, spending money on pet projects without any kind of oversight. And that's the problem with Parliament. There's no proper oversight in Parliament to be able to stop these. The committees aren't strong enough to be able to investigate the spending and what it's spent on. They're not strong enough. There's not enough oversight, and that's been a big problem with devolution, and that's something that needs changed immediately. There needs to be tighter. If we're going to keep devolution, which we obviously are. I don't think there's going to be anything in the near future anyway. But I think right now, they need to change Holyrood. They need to tighten it up. They need to start investigating where the money's gone, why it's been spent, on who spent it, and what they've spent it on. Because there's nothing we don't know. That like the bank that in the investment bank, there's about £2 billion in that, and every investment that we've seen that that's been looked at so far, they've made a loss on it.
Yeah,
so
well, I mean that's
a $2
typical.
billion black hole. Use that money.
Well, the government is, not really a good allocator of capital in that sense. Not to say the venture capitalists are much better, to be honest, in many cases. But are these cuts real? This is the thing. I was looking through some of these cuts, and they said that there's this cyclist group on Twitter, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is terrible." They said £23 million of revenue was cut from the £220 million active travel budget. And then I looked down a wee bit further, and someone said, well, that's actually just the money that comes from the abolition of the peak fares and the trains. So basically, what that's saying is that almost £200 million is still there for active travel. And you're like, well, there's that. And then what about the £300 million to put kids in buses? Bus fare, it's not a right. That you get to travel on the bus. It's this $500,000 straight away, $500 million straight away. But they've not even touched that. It's not that. I mean, it's not rocket science here. So and I think the thing about this active travel is a bit weird. Is the Greens aren't in government anymore. So why are you doing that? And
still pandering.
And you see stuff like in Glasgow, they're going on about how they're going to put more bike lanes in, and you're like, well, what happened to the libraries and swimming pools and stuff like that? Sorry, Mary, what were you going to say there?
No.
Okay.
It was Mark.
They still need the Greens to vote their budget through, don't they? So I think they're going to try and keep them happy by giving them a bus lane here and there.
It's not a bus lane here. The thing is, it's not actually a bus lane here and there.
Bike lane, should I say?
Yeah, so a bike lane here. Now, what other things? But of course, the big ticket items are not being cut. Baby boxes not being cut. Someone's saying today £160 it costs per baby box. Now, I've never understood this baby box thing. Why didn't the government just say, go to Unilever, go to Procter and Gamble, and say, "Look, you organise this thing, and we'll help you do publicity with it." I mean, it's not complicated, and then they would put all the free stuff in it, because for the families. But no, the taxpayer is going to have to pay to give middle class families £180 worth of free tat, and a lot of which ends up in the charity shop.
shops.
Yeah, right, in the charity shop. Now,
No, we are. I would be in favour of baby boxes for for women and people in need, parents in need.
well, I mean, sure, but we have charities for that, for people.
But I agree that they absolutely should be sponsored by companies
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why
who
would
want
you
them
do
to
that?
become customers.
But of course, the reason they do that, of course, is they end up having a whole bunch of people they're employed looking after it as well. That's why the cost is so high for these things. It's probably full of £20 worth of stuff, and the rest is made up in salaries for the people who are administering it. Anyway, I just made that up, but it's that kind of idea, isn't it? Now, some other ideas here. Scrapping came from Agent P on Twitter. Scrap Angus Robertson's £350 million international and constitution budget, or whatever that is. What is all that going on?
It was the only budget it was the only department last time that didn't get cut. Education got cut by, I think, about 50 million, something like that. Angus Robinson's department never got touched, and I think he's actually spoke about this and said it won't be touched again. It still won't be touched.
See, I mean, these aren't. That's we talked about this a little bit with this last week. These aren't hard decisions.
No.
Nothing's hard about that. What's hard is cutting baby boxes for them anyway, or doing these things. But basically, as you say, if you had to roll back all the things they did, which they actually should be done, then, well, what's the point in having them? Right? Would Westminster make worse decisions, Mark?
No, I think no, I don't think that's possible to make worse decisions than what the SNP have done. Even Labour will make better decisions than the SNP. I'm sure of it, even though I'm not too convinced with Labour at all. But no, I would take anybody in the monster raving loony party. I would take them over the SNP, because they've actually destroyed Scotland. They really have. It's quite. I think it's quite a scandal how much money, and we're not even touching the corruption from the government yet, because I know there's corruption at Westminster. There's always corruption in governments, but I think the SNP are on a different level. Even Europe have noticed that and mentioned the corruption within the SNP. So I think we need better oversight in where the money's been gone. We really do. But,
well, someone's just pointed out that Audit Scotland has no teeth.
No, they don't. They have no power.
That's
whatsoever.
well, they need to be given the power.
Well, I mean, I think it needs to be some kind of. I actually think there's a danger if you say, okay, if things don't work, then it's taken away. And if Westminster makes positive action, but if there was some kind of ratchet, for example, where it was that there was so many failures in a row that it automatically happened, then that could be a way of dealing with this type of thing. Now, they tried to counter by saying they were forced to balance the budget. Robertson said the Scottish Government operates with a largely fixed budget determined by Westminster, and under the Labour government it's clear that they're entering a whole new era of austerity. But I noticed this is a bit of a logical fallacy. Implies that if they had more money from the UK, that things would be better, right? Yet at the same time, they claim independence would make them better off. So you can't really do those two things at once. And then the second part is because you can't get more money from the UK if you're independent. Let's just straight that out.
Well, if they can come up with £23 billion every year.
Right. So, well, they would I mean, another implication, I suppose, is that they think they would have more levers and then they could borrow more. But imagine them borrowing money to fund all this tat. That's even worse.
Who would they be borrowing from?
Well, that's a question.
China and Russia.
Yes, we'd have discussed that many times. And it's also kind of misdirecting from the fact that when anyone is given a fixed budget to work with, if you over and spend in some areas, that's entirely your fault. What they're trying to say is that somehow we've been given a budget, but it's not enough. But that's not the case. What's actually happened is they've been given a budget and they've overspent. inside that budget, or they've made choices that they don't like inside that budget. That's actually more like it. And that comes down to a complete lack of forward planning. It's all about the blame game, though, Mark, isn't it?
Yeah. It's they try and hide behind this. Well, we can't have a deficit. We don't have a deficit. We spend within our budget. Well, they don't. We get 88.5 billion. That's what we produce in Scotland. That's what we make in Scotland in taxes and with the oil. Now, the UK government, with the budget, they spend on public services 111.8 billion.
Yes.
So there is a deficit. There is a deficit, and it is
nearly 23 billion.
It's actually 10.4% of Scotland's GDP.
It's huge.
The UK run a deficit of 4.5%, I believe. It's round about there. So it's a huge deficit, which the UK, obviously, taxpayers from all over the UK pick up that kind of money. So to say that we don't have a deficit is not actually true. We actually do have a deficit. It just goes on to the UK's deficit. The money, the 22 billion just adds on to the UK's deficit. So it's quite nonsense to say we don't. And 10.4% deficit is huge. If we were independent, and that would actually go up. All the fiscal people, all the experts say that would actually go up on independence. So we'd be running a deficit bigger than what Greece had when they went bust.
Yes, well, it's not, I mean, everyone knows this, except for GERS deniers, people who deny the results of the Scottish Government's own financial reporting, which we have here. We wrote an article, Stephen Bailey wrote it for us just a few days ago. Stop lying about GERS. Basically, the many lies that they tell about these statistics, who produces them, whether it gives a real picture of Scotland's finances, the lie that Scotland's oil and gas subsidises the rest of the UK, and why doesn't the rest of the UK let Scotland go? And I'll just answer that very quickly now, because Scotland isn't the only part of the UK that has a deficit. That, in fact, only the London and the southeast have have a surplus, but they have such a surplus because there are so many people there and so much more GDP, so much more taxes are raised there. Every other area of the UK runs a deficit. Northern Ireland, Cornwall, the north of England, you name it.
The Midlands.
Yes, they all run deficits. And that means, so basically when people are saying, well, they should just let us go, what are they saying actually? Well, that means that London and the southeast should let the rest of the country go. That's not the way countries work. Some parts of the country make more money in taxes than others, and government's job, I suppose, is to spread that wealth around.
It's just a normal country. It's just a normal country. It's the way every country acts.
What they're trying to say is, those terrible English folk why don't they let us go? Simultaneously saying that English folk are so greedy that they would want to let the rest of the UK go, and ignoring the fact that they are also subsidised as well. Anyway,
I have to disagree with Richard Graham, who wants to tax Tunnock's tea cakes.
Let's not do that.
No way.
No, that's not possible. They are a beacon of hope in an otherwise sad and dangerous world. All right. Okay. Well, the SNP, as we know, nationalism is deflection. It's always someone else's fault. Political system based on the idea of a big boy did it and ran away, never take responsibility for their own actions. But because they're not elected on their ability to perform in government, they're elected on the ability to blame someone else. So it's no surprise then you have people who can't perform and blame everyone else for their poor performance. This is exactly what happened. Made a whole political philosophy out of it. But I think this is coming to an end because in tough times, people are a bit tired of that. They're like, okay, what can you actually do? And I do think if the SNP did admit responsibility a bit, that then the voters might respect him a little bit more. And it seems to be the case in Labour to some extent. They're saying, look, we don't have the money, so we have to make difficult choices. Sounds fair enough. But just this endless, we actually misspent, and we'll blame Westminster for it, that the SNP come up with, is a bit much. I think for voters to handle. Mark, final words on this?
Yeah, it's just continuous, isn't it? It's just blame Westminster, blame Westminster, blame Westminster. They take no, as long as they don't take accountability for what's happening in Scotland, then this mess will carry on, and we'll be in the same position, probably worse next year. So it's just
yeah, I think
tiresome.
It's very tiresome, isn't it? And I think that's the idea: people not taking, you're elected to take responsibility, but you're not taking responsibility, and it's like, well, why do we elect you then? Or we've got Parliament that's supposed to take responsibility, it doesn't take responsibility. Then why
Parliament's
do we have
too
you?
weak. Parliament is too weak.
And okay, with that, we will move on to the next section. Thank you very much for all your comments so far. Yes, blaming Westminster to keep the sheeple happy. Indeed, that's the thing. All right, so we'll come back in a few seconds, and we're going to talk. And Mark's going to talk about the conference that he watched and nobody else did. He's like the single viewer of this conference. All right, so we'll see you in a second. Right, but before all that, if you do like the show, like what we're trying to do here, please do consider a donation to the majority. You can do so. If you're on YouTube, you can do it with a super sticker or super thanks, and if we see those, we try and highlight them. Although it's not that easy to see them on the system. Or you can go to our website, where on the right-hand side of every page is a donate button where you can make a monthly or one-time donation. Everything helps keep us going. We've got trying to get power through to 2026, and we need a bit of a chest to do that, because we do quite a lot of stuff. We're writing articles, doing the show, we're doing research, we have meetings. There's all a bunch of stuff goes on in the background, and everything helps to keep that going. That's it. Right, Mark, you're up with your experiences of the
Yes, I was.
conference.
I was sad enough to watch, not all of it, by the way. I didn't sit and watch all of it, but I watched quite a bit of it. But and this was so I could give my account of what's gone on. That's all. I didn't enjoy it.
Right.
So it was the
Didn't expect
90th
you to enjoy it.
No, it was the 90th. Some parts were quite funny, to be honest with you. I'm not sure they were meant to be, but they were. It was the 90th annual conference. And first thing I noticed, and I think quite a lot of people noticed, is that it was half empty for most of the time. There was not a lot of members there. And something I got told as well about the conference from members is that they were not happy. There was a lot of rumblings, a lot of discontent about, mainly, as obviously, about independence. There was no mention of a referendum whatsoever.
Yes.
They mentioned independence, but they didn't mention a referendum. Now, the first thing was, and it wasn't in the main hall, this was in the side hall, and it was just a snippet of how ridiculous it's got and how cringeworthy it's got. Ali McIntosh, I think it's called, 26, a transgender person, whatever. I still don't understand that. Anyway, she was in a side meeting with the Justice Minister, Angela Constance, and Angela Constance misgendered.
Oh, yes.
Him, her, whatever we want to call it.
Well,
I'm surprised they weren't arrested on the spot for doing that.
That's right.
Justice Minister called him sir.
Right.
So,
okay.
But, called her sir.
Yeah, you just did it there.
This person also spoke in the main hall, and it was quite.
Well, I've got a little bit of I've got a little bit of that clip here. This is just the end of it.
Conference. Scotland is a song, and like any song, it must be sung together.
Thank you, Ailey.
Okay, well, I was just wondering, after looking at that, I was wondering what song would Scotland be if it was a song, perhaps The Long and Winding Road?
All cried out.
Oh, very good, Mary. Very good.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
the
it
doors,
was-
the closing doors. This is the end, or maybe it's a bit more esoteric. Katy Perry circling the drain. Anyway, so please put your song
Let
ideas.
us know what you think. Yeah.
in the comments. Right.
Well,
I think there's always a bunch of nutters at the thing. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying transgender people are nutters. I'm just I'm saying, irrespective of whether that person's transgender or not, they're a nutter. So,
yeah, I think we saw, and I'm not just talking about this person, but there was a few that came up to speak, and you actually had to think: are they mentally able or should be speaking at a political conference? I don't think they were. Personally,
Are the speakers vetted? Does anyone know? Do
I
you
don't.
vet the
I'm sure
speakers?
they must be.
I don't know.
I mean, there'll be fringe events as well at the thing, but on the main stage, certainly, everyone will be vetted.
I listened to the First Minister's closing speech, and it was full of contradictions. He said he they'd recognised the defeat at Westminster, they'd listened to it, and then straight after he talked about independence and persuading people to vote independence.
I've actually got that in the clip. Do you want me to show that?
Put that up, yeah.
Conference, one of the conclusions I've drawn from the Westminster election, and I've thought about it a lot, and I've engaged with you all about it.
I don't know why it's dark.
We've discussed it at this conference. It's led me to a fundamental commitment that I'll make to you, which is this: never again will we go into an election with people thinking, I like the idea of independence, but that can wait because I'm more concerned about the economy, or my job, or the cost of living, or the National Health Service. My promise to you is that I will make sure independence is understood as the route to a stronger and a fairer country. Understood not as nice to have, but as urgent and essential here and now. That is how we will make independence happen.
Oh, God.
What's up with the lighting?
Oh, no,
Have they cut the lighting budget?
I got that from YouTube, and I don't know why it was so dark.
Maybe they had to turn the lights down.
Well,
they
maybe
didn't have enough money for the meter.
Cost of living crisis. I mean, this is the thing. They've got this. They haven't learned anything, have they? They're sort of banging on about independence and actually try to double down on independence and say this is the route. Now, if they were smart, which they're not, of course, they would be saying, look, they would park it and say people have real concerns, and these are this is why we get a thrashing. There's people get real concerns about this. There is possibly a space for them to be a Scotland-focused party, not based on independence. It's possible, but the thing is, they'll always lose. They'll lose the core of people who think independence is possible. But they're going to be in Alba and get 12. I mean, Alba get 12,000 votes, less than 12,000 votes. That's what you say to anyone who says we want to be focused on independence. 12,000 votes. Alex Salmond didn't even vote for his own party. I mean, come on. It's absolute nonsense. 12,000 people out of the whole entire electorate voted for a party that was completely focused on independence.
Mm-hmm.
That says it's dead. So why are they chasing those votes? It's just nonsense.
I really don't understand it. And he went on to say, we are going to look outwards rather than inwards.
They should definitely be looking inwards.
Can anyone explain what that actually means? Because we're
going to blame everybody else, not ourselves.
We're in a bit of a mess at the moment, and we're going to look outwards rather than inwards. I think he needs to concentrate on inwards, on the country, rather than looking Sweden or wherever he wants to look. It's quite...
It's absolute insanity, really.
And he goes on to say that he's going to prioritise public services.
Okay.
But didn't say how he was going to do it or what the plan was or any kind of plan. I think the plan is independence.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Because they don't have any ideas, and they don't have any people who've got any ideas either. I mean,
well, you have to remember that when the Greens were in, they were the ones that were coming up with all the, legislation.
Yes.
Because the SNP just didn't have any ideas about anything.
No. One thing they did win. One thing he won the bingo. because he mentioned Westminster fault. He said lessons to be learned, and he said progressive. They're going to be more progressive. So he won the bingo. He ticked all the and I think he mentioned Brexit as well. So yeah, he won at
it's so
SNP bingo.
So Sturgeon and Yousaf weren't there.
No, Sturgeon wasn't there. She was never even mentioned. They've done the same thing what they did with Salmond. They've actually just completely erased her from any kind of the topics or anything. She's never mentioned. Humza was there, but he never got to speak. Never spoke at an event. He never spoke at in the main hall.
Was he carrying a Palestine flag?
He was there, so that was quite interesting of why. But he did say First Minister did say something that that I found quite interesting. He said that he was going to stop the inward fighting. So obviously, there's a big issue within the SNP with squabbling and fighting. But it's the first time I think I've heard him say that there is a problem, because he said it in his main speech. He said, we need to stop the squabbling and fighting, the squabbling and fighting within the party. So there's obviously a big problem with that. I think we've all known there's been a problem, but it's never been talked about, has it? It's never really been a discussion.
They tried to keep everything under wraps, of course, with their directive not to criticise any other party member. But obviously, in any party, there are factions. Of course, look what happened to Brexit, to the Tory party. I mean, that's a part of it, half and half, and so it's kind of destroyed them for a while. People have to forget about that. But it just seemed like so much retreading of failure. Really, you've got a guy up there, Swinney, who hasn't. He's just. He's not inspirational. He's previously failed. He just lost a huge election.
I would say he's a middle manager, but I don't even know if he's that high.
He's that
lower
high. And then there's a bunch of people there who are, they still think that the SNP is the vehicle, when all the people who are actually interested in independence have gone to, say, like Alba or somewhere else. And just a few of them. It was also always a rump. That's what you should call it, the rump SNP. Basically, that's all there is. It's desperate. And I think
it was. Yeah, it came across as quite desperate. There was a lot of squabbling within in the fringe events. There was a hell of a lot of squabbling and arguing from the members. I don't think they're very happy with what they're seeing. The ones that were there. And the ones that weren't there, well, that says everything, doesn't it? Yeah. I just think they're in desperate condition, and I think they're only going one way, and I do see that they're going to be in serious trouble within the next few years, leading up to 26.
Yeah, I mean, they've got nowhere to go. That's it. That's what it comes down to. All right, great, well done, Mark. Thank you for putting up with all that boredom and nuttery in equal measure. For us all. Anyway, well, it's okay. Next up, we're going to take a short break, as usual, and come back with Mary, who's going to be talking about developments in the Alex Salmond saga, that legal case that's being ongoing and will be ongoing until the heat death of the universe appears. Okay, right, let's move on. Right, Mary, so what's Sleepy Cuddles up to now?
Well, we're all very familiar by now with the police operation Branch Farm.
That's right.
Which is investigating the SNP's financial shenanigans, and for which Nicola Sturgeon, Peter Murrell and Colin Beattie have been arrested. Yes. Only Peter Murrell has been charged so far. Anyway, but this week the SNP is reeling from a fresh scandal as police launch a new investigation called Operation Broadcroft.
Connected to names from.
I know, that's a B and a C. Connected to former First Minister and party leader Alex Salmond. Anyway, police are investigating allegations that a senior civil servant, James Hind, gave false evidence under oath to the Scottish Parliament's inquiry into the handling of harassment complaints against Salmond. Now, this James Hind was the head of the Cabinet, Parliament and Governance Division within the Scottish Government, so extremely senior guy.
Right.
Now, the inquiry concluded in March 2021 that the handling of the complaints against Alex Salmond and the subsequent judicial review was seriously flawed. It was established after the Scottish Government admitted it hadn't followed the correct procedures during that judicial review, which resulted in over £500,000 being paid out to Salmond in legal costs. Salmond was cleared of 14 sexual assault charges in 2020, and he's now alleging misfeasance. Is that how you say it?
Misfeasance.
By civil servants and seeking significant compensation from the Scottish Government for damages and loss of earnings, which could amount to millions of pounds.
Well, I mean, all along he has basically said that there was a conspiracy. And of course, we have to be careful what's going on. But I think David Davis mentioned some of that, part of that in the Parliament not that long ago, where he said that Liz Lloyd, for example, leaked the information about his upcoming arrest in the criminal trial to a journalist in the Daily Record. Now, what's happening is that by drips and drabs, is that the expression? The information is coming out, and as more comes out, it's a bit like pieces in the jigsaw. I always talk about that jigsaw identification. Perhaps it's quite an interesting phrase in this case, because at a certain point, the more information will come out. This is his objective, is to get more information out, so that people can put together the jigsaw. The jigsaw will be enough so that you can see, this is what actually happened here.
Well, I think he's trying to bring them all down.
Well, trying to, but he has to do it in a certain way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it seems that we're talking about misfeasance or whatever it was. Let's just, in the judicial inquiry, there was the initial complaint that was done in the Scottish Parliament that was poorly handled, and then the criminal thing is after that as well. How that was also, as he alleges, a conspiracy by certain members of the Scottish government or whatever it is. So we can't mention. Nobody can mention who those people are, even though many people know who they are. I don't really know who they are, so I can't be accused of that. Anyway, ultimately, there's also the issue of the perjury thing that's coming up as well, right? Is that you going to mention it? No. So basically, there's an ongoing thing, and because in the case, one of the accusers basically said that Alex Salmond was in a particular place at a certain time, and he said that he proved that wasn't the case. Then they are now under investigation for perjury, and if that comes to light, then that person will be named, and that will be another piece of the jigsaw.
Well,
so
I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I hadn't even heard of this James Hind.
No,
so he's one of the names that hasn't even been mentioned so far.
I have been told by someone within Alba who I know privately that what could come out in the civil case is pretty explosive. What could come out if it's not settled, if the civil case is not settled before it goes to court. Now, I'm told he won't accept any offer. He's asked for 3 million. I'm told he won't. Personally, he won't accept anything less, and he's wanting to go to court because he wants certain things to come out that he's not allowed to put out into the public domain, and that could come out in the civil case. And what could lead from the civil case, I've been told, would certainly be an investigation by the police into this as well. Into what could come out of the civil case. So
I think that's his objective.
He's not told me. He's not told me what it is, because he said he can't, even though he trusts that I wouldn't put it out there
on the majority show.
He won't tell me what it is, but what he said is, I promise you, it's explosive. What could come out. So I think it's watch this space.
Yeah. Well, I think this. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, he doesn't seem to be in any hurry though, Alex, because the reason for the Court of Session case on Friday was that he was asking for it to be paused or SIST as they call it in legal terms, pause the proceedings so that the ongoing police investigations pertinent to the case should be allowed to conclude first. So is he talking about Branch Farm and the other?
Yeah, Branch Farm and the perjury,
all the perjury, all this.
investigation.
But
he wants them to go. Yeah, I read that as well. He wants them to be concluded, and then he can use that in his cases.
Anyway,
And
the judge
I think he wants
rejected
it close. He wants it closer to 26 as well to do as much damage as it can do.
Now, this is actually
I think as well.
Probably because this is the fourth time that Alex Salmond has attempted to pause the case since he lodged the petition last in November.
Yeah, he's trying to do that, so he has more ammunition. They're trying to stop it, so that I think if they can conclude things in a certain time, then he can't reveal certain things and so on. So it's all this kind of waiting game or delaying game that's going on. Anyway, I mean it's the whole thing is bizarre. Anyway, what I don't understand is that basically if you're accused of rape, right? If you're any person accused of rape, and the person, those claims are found to be not true, you're found not guilty, then why does the person who's accused you still have anonymity if no crime happened? So I don't understand why that is, and they're trying to impose that. Some people say, okay, well that's because it would stop people coming forward. But surely, if you have a case, you would come forward anyway. And if you don't have a case, it would stop people who don't have a case because their anonymity would be at risk. It seems to be not the right thing. Okay, very good, Mary. We'll see how that develops in time. But I mean, I suppose to some extent you've got to say as well, what's going to do at Salmond? You can't bring down Nicola Sturgeon anymore. Right, I mean, he can bring her down more, but he can't bring her down from power. She's already gone, and can it bring the SNP down? Not really. And will he get more voters? No, not really.
Maybe he just wants the truth to come out.
But I think obviously for a personal thing, that's worthwhile.
Vengeance.
A worthwhile endeavour.
And there's a lot of money involved.
Well, I didn't know about this money thing. So obviously, there's money's handy. How old is he now? He's in his 70s. I don't know. Mary, you can look it up. Right. Well, Mary's doing that. Things you can do right now to support the show. You can buy a T-shirt or a mug. Look at this. Oh my God! Isn't that the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? There's a strong message there to abolish Holyrood, or at least to improve it. We couldn't imagine #improve Holyrood. But rubbish, really. But let's abolish, and that sounds more strident. Anyway, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube. You can tell your friends about us, and you can also do all of the above, which makes us extremely happy and fulfilled! ! Underline. Coming up, it's a moment you've been waiting for.
Alex Salmond is 69 years old.
69 years old, okay. Coming up, it's the moment you've all been waiting for, the highlight of the week. It is Zoomer of the Week.
Yay!
Right, okay, where have we got here? Okay. My Zoomer is Neil Gray, who has been, until today, been crying his heart out about Oasis tickets. Listen up. I will be trying to squash as many Oasis song titles into this segment as I can.
We won't recognise them unless you somehow talk about him having a champagne supernova or something.
Well, I'm going to try and do my best here. I'm not. No, I have to say I'm not a big Oasis fan other than that. So, but anyway, we'll give it a go. Gray was chairing a panel discussion on Alzheimer's at his party's conference on Saturday, during which he admitted to delegates he was trying to get Oasis tickets. The Sunday Mail reported he'd been looking on his phone during the meeting and told delegates he was queuing on multiple devices. And then, but when accused of this, he said it was total nonsense and he wasn't trying to buy tickets in the meeting. Some might say he wasn't being as honest as he urged us. But his master plan became unstuck today when, in an interview with LBC, he decided to go let it out and told him that he was actually in the queue for Oasis tickets. He insisted he was fully focused on the meeting. Whatever. That's actually a song.
But you lost me there. He said he wasn't trying to get tickets.
He says he wasn't getting tickets, and then he was getting the tickets, and it's backwards and forwards.
So as
Anyway,
usual, we
clip,
can't believe
actually.
anything they say.
I was in the queue, and anybody that understands how being a queue for tickets works, it wasn't something that was fast moving. So my phone was in my pocket. There was progress getting made in this queue dispersing. I didn't actually end up getting onto Ticketmaster, such was the demand for tickets. But no, I was fully focused at the meeting on hearing and chairing the discussion on an inspiring area of policy development that's happening here in Scotland. And I was fully focused on that, and both participants and the panel would be able to confirm that.
Was there a baby crying in the background there?
Yeah,
Right. Well, okay.
it's not ours.
He's crying its heart out as the song goes.
Yes.
There's no doubt that Gray's credibility is sliding away, not little by little, but as much as a supernova, perhaps even one made of champagne. We have to wonder what more nonsense these chancellors will come up with. But it's clear that Scottish voters are definitely maybe looking back in anger at Gray's shenanigans and saying, I can see a liar. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I think you can't find any
I hope
more.
our audience appreciates just how much went into that.
Nobody's like,
It was,
that was 5
excellent,
minutes.
very good.
I think ChatGPT could have done it better than me. But anyway, we're.
I think you got at least 10 in there.
Yeah, that's it. I know, but it's what nonsense. This is this thing that, like Michael Matheson all over again. And basically this idea, oh no, I didn't do it. And then, oh, I did do it, but look, it's so funny, isn't it? I didn't, the phone was in my pocket, but I didn't look at it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what kind of nonsense is it? The problem is nobody. I mean, if you came out the door and said, were you looking for tickets? And he went, definitely, maybe. And then people might go, all right, you're fine, whatever. But because he lied about it, then you're like, well, why? Why did you do that? Just fess up, man. And
Tell the truth. Yep.
it's not rocket science. Anyway.
And lies are more complicated than the truth. Yep.
Well, that's true. That's not a song title, is it?
No.
Should be
Maybe
me.
it should
That's
be,
it. That's
yes.
it. You should be on there. The third
I could write the next Oasis song.
That's it. Lies are more difficult than the truth. Coming soon at you for you. Only £1,000 a ticket to go and see Mary appearing alongside the Gallagher brothers at the Glasgow Hydro. Right. Okay. Enough hilarity as such. We will move on to the next Zoomer, and that will be from Mark. There you go.
My Zoomer, Angus Robertson.
Why?
Why poor Angus? What has he done to deserve this?
Right. He's done two things, and both were at conference. Well, first of all, he claimed that the SNP will still spend public money on independence papers, even though they're making all sorts of cuts. Now, it goes against what Shona Robinson said when she said she hinted that they were gonna pull that and they weren't going to spend public money on it. My question would be to Angus is why we're spending public money on an independence paper in the first place?
Yes,
because it is public money. It's for our services. We don't want independence papers. The majority of Scotland don't want them. So why are they spending money in the first place?
Yeah.
And also, he did an interview. The second one. He did an interview where he was talking about his decision to speak to an Israeli diplomat.
Oh, yes.
And he went on to say that Scotland has a duty to, an international duty to speak to foreign diplomats and foreign heads of state to put their position forward internationally because we are respected as an international country and we have to do our duty. And when we spoke to the Israeli diplomat, they listened to Scotland, they took it in, and we will not be speaking to them again.
Absolutely.
And he says we have
deleted.
Yeah, and then he went on a big ramble about international. We are known internationally, and we have a duty internationally to speak to all. And I'm thinking, well, you don't. You don't have any duty whatsoever.
It's
outside their remit.
Yeah, it's completely outside.
It's reserved.
And it was it was
They have a duty
complete-
to fill potholes and get on with running Scotland.
Supposedly.
It was
Right.
Right. So you've got two reasons for Angus Robertson.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's just. I mean, this is this idea. Now, Scotland is part of the UK. The UK has a whole foreign office, and has a minister.
James Cleverly?
Yeah, whoever it is.
No, he's conservative, isn't he?
David Lammy, sorry.
Yeah.
David Lammy, for good or bad,
Pardon
is making decisions in foreign matters. This is, I don't think you should have these jumped up town councillors, trying to make issues about international, causing an international instance. Really, it's bad enough that the UK government is causing them. Anyway, dual the A9 indeed. Anyway, okay, right. Mark, that was a pretty good suggestion, though. I think very
And
good.
2 reasons.
2 reasons, yes. Okay, moving on. It's going to be Mary. Right, Mary, there you
Well,
go.
I'm going to go with a suggestion from Marco Polo at Mark the Hibby. My nomination for Zoomer of the Week is Shona Craven, the community editor and columnist for The National, Scotland's deluded propaganda rag.
Right.
This week, Shona was on the telly saying, people can say the SNP's reputation for good governance is in tatters, but when you ask them to point to specific things, I'm not sure that would be evidenced. Let's hear her saying it.
Right, let's have a look at this later.
Perception. People can say, oh, the SNP's reputation for good governance is in tatters, but when you actually ask them to point to specific things, I'm not sure that would be evidenced. I think they've had a very, very good reputation, and then the slightest thing that goes wrong and suddenly it's the SNP in crisis, rather than, there's some healthy internal debates going on. It's all about how you spin these things, really. And so John Swinney needs to try not to sound too defensive, but also be straight with people and realistic about the challenges.
I love that bit about the slightest thing. The slightest thing, like the whole economy's gone down the drain, there's no public services left, just the slightest thing. Anyway, I would say, I suppose if you ask someone who hasn't lived in Scotland for the last 17 years, they might hesitate to think up any specific things. Although I think the shenanigans going on here have reached international notice. Even Elon Musk has become involved with Humza Yousaf's extreme racism. And Elon's a very busy man. But for most of us who have suffered and continue to suffer under SNP stupidity and incompetence, waste on an industrial scale, sex pestery, sleaze, financial scandals, arrests, lack of transparency, wrong priorities, drug death soaring, housing emergency, and every service in rapid decline, particularly education, these are all specific things that we could all list to obliterate the SNP's reputation for good governance. If Shona Craven needs us to be, if Shona Craven needs us to be even more specific, I've got another good friend, Jill Stevenson, who came up with a list, history women as we know her. She listed BIFAB, Prestwick Airport, Gupta, ferries, Scottish National Investment Bank, missing COVID money, DRS scheme, mobile phones for prisoners, baby boxes, free bus fares for the under 22s, and I could go on all night. COVID deaths, ministers allegedly lying under oath, allowing the Greens to dictate new laws. I absolutely, I think Shona Craven must be living under a rock with earplugs in and a blindfold on if she thinks your average person in Scotland couldn't reel off at least 10 examples of SNP bad governance faster than contestants listing prizes on the Generation Game.
But it's how you spin it, as she put it. It's how you spin it.
I guess it is, Mark.
But I mean, I don't think John Swinney's capable of spinning anything. There's no spin. There's no spin in that man at all.
His head's spinning. The Scottish people gave the SNP the boot in the general election because of their bad governance, but Shona Craven still has her head in the sand, and that's why she is my Zoomer of the week.
That was a bit of a mixed metaphor there, Mary.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, but anyway, Mary, you're back in form. Say the public, clear winner. You're getting quite a lot of things there now.
I typed that in myself.
Mark D decides, I didn't know it was me to decide. Right, you can go back to doing.
Did you put my comments up?
Yes,
Mark?
I did this time. I remembered eventually. Okay, all right. Okay, Angus Robertson. Now I'm confused because this headline in front of me says Shona Robertson.
What?
Angus Robertson. very confusing, the whole thing. Anyway, but I mean, he's just a blowhard, isn't he? Yeah, it's tough. And Neil Gray, I mean, come on. Some might say that he should be the Zoomer of the week, but I think it has to go to Mary.
Yay!
This one. I think it was quite impassioned.
To those who doubted me tonight and said I've been off form, there you go.
Right. Very well done there, Mary.
I haven't won for a while, so thank you
to,
for that.
I don't know. It was
I think I have to agree with that one.
Yes.
Thank you, Mark.
It was very good.
Where did I get to? Well, I have to write it in here.
Right.
There we go. So,
God, come on, put up your recaption.
what was her name again? Shona?
Craven. You know, you should probably get 3 and ready, and then you could just click the wee button.
Did you win, Mary, or did Marco Polo win?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's true. I shall share it with Marco Polo,
Yes.
and I used a list from Jill as well. So,
Right, very good.
where is it? There it is.
You got it.
Yes.
Right, there we go.
I'm so excited at winning that I can't, kind of.
Very good. All right. Okay, we're so happy to have you with us every week to discuss Scotland's #1 politics chat. We will see you same time, same place next Wednesday. My thought for the week is to change a slightly famous quote. Giving money and power to the Scottish Government is like giving whiskey and Ferrari to teenage boys. It may be amusing to watch the results for a while, but in the end, someone is going to get hurt, and there's a good chance they're going to run you over. So, thank you all for your support. Please do donate if you can. Tell your friends, whatever. Huge thanks to Mark Z for coming on tonight. And, of course, a huge thanks to the winner, our Zoomer winner, Mary, this week. And we will see you, as I said, next week. So thank you all, and take care. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the comments.
Night.
Good night.